Hello everyone. Welcome back to our AWS Cloud Practitioner Certification Bootcamp series by CloudExpert Solutions. Today we are diving into the AWS Well-Architected Framework, a set of best practices to build secure, high-performing and cost-efficient cloud architecture. If you are preparing for the exam, this is a must-known topic because AWS loves testing your understanding of these pillars. By end of this video, you will know the 6 pillars of the AWS Well-Architected Framework, design principles for each pillars, which is key for the exam, key differences between them so you don't mix them up, and real-world examples to remember them easily. On behalf of the CloudExpert Solutions team, I would like to thank you for joining us and exploring this video. If you have already subscribed to our channel, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If you haven't subscribed yet, we kindly invite you to do so and gain access to premium cloud courses and certification bootcamps all for free. We have a lot to cover. Let's jump in. The AWS Well-Architected Framework is like a blueprint for building strong, efficient, and secure cloud system. It based on 6 pillars: operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. Think of this as the foundation of a well-built house. If one is weak, the whole structure suffers. AWS uses this to review architectures and suggest improvements. Each pillar has design principles, which is nothing but best practices AWS recommends. Let's break them down one by one. We'll start with operational excellence. Operational excellence is about running and monitoring systems efficiently. The key focus area is automating process, responding to incidents, and continuously improving. Under the operational excellence pillar, AWS best practices says perform operation as code. That means automate deployments using infrastructure as code templates, and you can use CloudFormation or Terraform to create the infra as code templates. Instead of accumulating changes for a big release, make frequent small reversible changes which will be easier to roll back if something fails. Refine operations procedures continuously and learn from incidents and improve. You should also anticipate failure. That is why you should test disaster recovery scenarios. And last but not least, learn from all failures. Use post-incident reviews to understand why certain failures occurred. As an example of this pillar, using AWS CloudWatch for monitoring and AWS CloudFormation for automated deployments. In terms of exam tip, if the question is about automation, logging, or incident management, then think of operational excellence. That could be the potential correct answer. Now let's move to the next pillar, security pillar. Security is about protecting data and systems. Under this pillar, key focus areas are identity and access management or IAM, encryption, and compliance. Now let's review the design principles. AWS recommends you to implement a strong identity foundation to implement least privilege access using IAM role and policies. You should enable traceability. That means log everything from your application landscape with AWS CloudTrail and CloudWatch, which will say you who is creating a resource, who is deleting a resource, versus who is accessing an API and the resources. You should apply security at all layers. Starts with firewall at the outer periphery, then network access control list at the subnet level, followed by security groups at the instance level or at the EC2 level as instance firewall, and then encrypt the data. You should automate the security best practices. Use AWS config to enforce rules and track security policies. Last but not least, protect data in transit and at rest. You should use SSL or TLS for in-transit encryption and use KMS encryption for encrypting data at rest. As an example, you can use IAM for least privilege access and AWS KMS for encryption. In terms of exam tip, you should understand the difference from other pillars. Security is about preventing breaches, while reliability is about recovering from failure. You should identify the important phrase in that question. Is it looking for preventing data breaches or asking for security versus is it talking about recovering from failures? Talking about recovering from failures, let's review them in reliability pillar. Reliability ensures your system recovers from failures and meets demand. Here the key focus areas are fault tolerance, auto scaling, and backup strategies. In terms of design principles, AWS recommends you to test recovery procedures. That means you should simulate failure with chaos engineering. You should automatically recover from failure using auto-scaling group and multi-AZ deployments. You should scale horizontally and distribute traffic across instances to increase workload availability. And last but not least, you should stop guessing infrastructure capacity requirements. You can use AWS Elastic Load Balancing and DynamoDB auto-scaling to automatically scale up your infrastructure whenever load increases. As an example, you can use multi-AZ deployments in Amazon RDS or auto-scaling group to automatically scale out your infrastructure. And whenever the load goes down, your infrastructure will automatically scale into the previous stage. In terms of exam tips, if the question mentions recovery, redundancy, or uptime, then it is hinting for reliability. It's not performance efficiency. Talking about performance efficiency, let's review them in our next slide. Performance efficiency is about using resources optimally for speed and scalability. Here the key focus areas are selecting the right AWS services like selecting Lambda for serverless and EBS for storage based on your use case. In terms of design principles, AWS recommends you democratize advanced technologies. That means you should use managed services like AWS Lambda, Amazon Aurora instead of hosting your database in EC2 instances. You can deploy your application in multiple regions and serve to end users with lowest latency and the resources close to their proximity using AWS CloudFront. You should opt for serverless architectures which will reduce overhead and you can use AWS Lambda for that. You can experiment more often. You can test different instance type. As an example, you can use Graviton for better performance and cost efficiency. As an example, you can use Amazon CloudFront to reduce latency for your global user base. And here the key differences are performance is about speed, while reliability is about staying online. So you should understand the difference between performance and reliability. In our next slide, we are going to review cost optimization pillar. Cost optimization means avoiding unnecessary expenses. Here the key focus areas are right sizing resources, using reserve instances or AWS savings plan, and monitoring your cost. In terms of design principles, AWS recommends you adopt a consumption model and pay only for what you use. That means you can go to serverless using AWS Lambda or Amazon S3 for storage. You should measure overall efficiency and you can use AWS Cost Explorer to track your spending. You should use managed services to reduce operational cost. Last but not least, you should analyze and attribute expenditure. You can tag resources to track cost. You can get a granular view of your cost based on your department, based on your workload, or even environments. As an example, you can use AWS Cost Explorer to track spending. If any AWS question is asking about saving money, it's cost optimization. It's not performance efficiency. Now let's review the last pillar of AWS Well-Architected Framework, which is sustainability. Sustainability focuses on minimizing environmental impact. Here the key focus areas are reducing energy uses by using efficient hardware and optimizing workloads. In terms of design principles, AWS recommends maximizing utilization, that is, you should right size instances to reduce idle resources. You can use energy efficient services like Graviton processors, which consumes less power. You can also reduce downstream impact by optimizing data transfer. That means you can use caching, compression, which will reduce your data transfer volume. As an example, you can use AWS Graviton processor for better performance and cost. On the same time, it uses lower power. By using Graviton processor, you are adding positive impact to environment. As an exam tip, sustainability is a relatively newer pillar and you can expect questions on eco-friendly cloud practices. Since we have reviewed all the 6 AWS well-architected pillars, these pillars can sometimes be confusing or feel overlapping. It's important to know the design principles by heart. The AWS Cloud Practitioner certification typically includes 5 to 6 questions related to these pillars, testing your understanding from different perspectives. In comparison, the AWS Solutions Architect Associate exam usually contains 2 to 3 related questions. In the next slide, we will compare all the AWS well-architected pillars, highlight their key design principles, and explore example AWS services that support each pillars. To start with operational excellence, here the key design principles are automate, monitor, and improve. And as we mentioned, the AWS services, you can use Amazon CloudWatch and AWS CloudFormation. Moving to security pillar, the key design principles are least privilege and encryption. To support this pillar, you can use AWS IAM or Identity Access Management and KMS. Moving to reliability pillar, here the key design principles are auto recovery and multi-AZ. You can use auto scaling, RDS multi-AZ, or you can distribute your EC2 workload across multi-AZ to achieve high availability. Moving to performance efficiency, the key design principles are you should go serverless and global reach. For this, you can use AWS Lambda and Amazon CloudFront, followed by cost optimization, where you can go pay as you go where is possible, and right sizing. You can use Cost Explorer to explore your cost and the estimates. You can use reserve instances, savings plan to optimize your compute cost. And last but not least, sustainability, where the design principles are energy efficiency and reduce waste. You can use AWS Graviton processors, S3 intelligent tiering, where you do not know the object access pattern. Intelligent tiering can place those objects based on their access patterns. Before we conclude this video, let me give you some exam tips and common mistakes that we all do for these well-architected pillars. Please do not mix these concepts in exam. Security versus reliability. Security prevents attacks or it prevents data breaches, whereas reliability recovers from the failures. Moving on, performance versus cost. Performance is about speed, whereas cost is about savings. Although it looks very obvious, and during the exam you might be in a scenario where you will find difficulties to choose between performance and the cost optimization. So please remember, performance is about speed, whereas cost is about savings. and then operational excellence versus reliability. Operational excellence focuses on process, where reliability on uptime. If you remember these slides, you should not have any trouble answering well-architected framework questions, no matter how tricky or twisted they may appear. We have distilled the content down to the essential information you need to know. If you'd like to explore the AWS Well-Architected Framework in greater depth, simply scan the QR code to access the official AWS documentation. That wraps up this module. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more AWS exam preparation courses and cloud certification bootcamps. Got questions or feedback? Drop them in the comment. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for learning with us at CloudExpert Solutions. You are now one step closer to crushing your exam. See you in the next module.